It's good to be here.
Yeah, welcome back.
My name's Stefan Grace. I'm one of the founders of the Elastic Arts Foundation.
I'm olula negre, and I am one of the co-creators of the AfriClassical Futures series.
So maybe you could talk about that then. To start like coming into the Elastic family and like what like really what was that?
What did that look like? It was through Crystal Sabag's Freedom From Freedom To series here. Crystal and I met, moved here mid-August 2019. I think Crystal and I met for the first time late September, and she was like, you gotta come to the next iteration of my series. I'll send you the information. It was until December, and I showed up, and I can't remember when the next one was because, March 2020 happened. But I remember that she invited me in on the next iteration and just invited me again and again, and then I got to know everybody here, and in time, Julian Otis, who I had met through a friend and collaborator who lives out in Boston. I was out in Boston before coming to Chicago. Asked me if I would join as curator for AfriClassical Futures, the series we co-curate together, and so then I was doing that here, and then the Dark Matter residency came up, and it was like, you gotta apply, and I applied, and then I was a Dark Matter resident, and so that was going on, and so it's become kind of one of those things of like, if I'm out in the world and people, they used to ask, oh, where do you play? And I was like, well, I don't know, around. I can say now I can probably say, yeah, at Elastic Arts.
Nice. Yeah, nice.
Which is a good feeling, to feel like supported as a performer, not just as a curator, but as a performer as well.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
But what about you? Like, share a bit of the beginnings of this family.
Well, it's really nice to hear you say, and actually that distinction you just said between like as a curator and as a performer, because that was when we first started brainstorming about what this would be. It was for all of our own selfish needs as performers and musicians, and we were like, well, we don't feel like there are venues and places, outlets for people who want to try the kinds of things that we want to try, so we have to create our own outlet, basically. But at the same time, provide outlets for other people who are in the same need as us. So it was both as artists and as administrator curators, So that distinction has always, in my mind, been or the marriage of both of those things has been an important part of what it was that we set out to do. So it makes me really happy to hear that it's still a part of this. And I guess also, like, you keep referring to the Elastic family. I think that also is something that even all these years later, after I haven't really been involved I left Chicago 17 years ago, so it's been more than 17 years since I've been involved in this effort. But I still have a lot of really close friends, people who are definitely family in my mind, who I met through the course of this whole endeavor. So that also has really been at the heart of it, and just listening to all of like, well, how did you get into Elastic? And then you just listed this, well, I knew this person and I knew that person, and then they invited me. And so it was all these personal connections that led you to walk through the door here, not like an ad posted online somewhere, It was all very personal, and that too, I think, was always kind of at the forefront of our minds, was like how to make this organic thing that really capitalized on, but also nurtured the communities out of which all of the creativity sprang.
Yeah, yeah. It seems like a very like organic way of creating a community and an arts community. When I think about it, actually, the first time I heard about Elastic was the summer 2019, before I moved here. I was up at Banff doing a residency there with the International Contemporary Ensemble, and Katinka Klein was like, "Oh, you're moving to Chicago. Well, here's a list of places that you have to check out." And like the last one, was like, and also like, Elastic Arts. I was
right
like,
on.
oh yeah. And so, I even kind of forgot about that, but yeah, all these little threads, yeah.
And so, and not to be too stilted about this, but just with that, I'm curious how you see that going forward then, like with all of these personal strands leading you to being a part of this now. How does it continue to be organic as it moves into the future?
Yeah, I mean, there's several things that like come to mind as challenges, and I don't know what it says about me that's the first thing I think of, but it's we're all collectively recovering from the last few years, or like the last 8 years, or some more years than that.
It depends on how you want to frame it, right?
Yeah. We're all recovering. We're all in recovery.
We're all in recovery. Some trauma of some sort.
But yeah, I mean, so you mentioned like kind of having this as a space to explore even throughout the pandemic, and it's been very beautiful to see how there's like a core community that persists even through that. But I think there are challenges to making sure that this space is inclusive, and so that like it can continue to grow organically and be accessible. I think, yeah, that seems to me like something to be addressed. I can, there is the very just like real thing of there's no elevator.
Yeah.
But I think it can even, as much as I see the space changing and I've seen it change since, my relatively recent involvement, and I see a lot of effort behind like, trying to sort of diversify or to support different folks to present their art. I think when I first came, into the space, or came to know the space, it still felt kind of like a boys' club, like a white boys' club.
Yeah.
And while I've certainly seen some absolutely wonderful things here, and I've, that really feels like it's that is moving forward. I think it can, sometimes the vibe sticks around longer than the actual like bodies in the room change, and so I think growing to really represent that space of inclusivity, and not like inclusivity trademark, but
to really embody that, not just talk about it.
I think that's still to come. I think it can come. I think the people who like can push that forward are entering this space, you know.
Yeah.
So I'm really happy about that. But what about you?
Well, I mean, you
you're
touched
seeing
on
it
a few
from
different
afar,
things, you know. I mean, some important things that I thought a lot about, and something that I wasn't really aware of until I was coming out here. I shouldn't say that I wasn't aware of, but I hadn't thought a lot about it, which is that it was all guys,
Yeah.
and even though we were a racially diverse group, it was still a bunch of guys who wanted to like basically rent a loft and play a bunch of music together, and so that certainly is going to set a tone that, you know, whether you mean to or not, that's going to set a tone, you know.
Yeah.
So, which is why I'm really also excited to, you know, to see you involved, to see a woman of color involved. It takes it in just the
I'm
direction.
actually trans non-binary.
Oh, excuse me.
That makes it even more exciting.
Even more. Even more on the diversity bill.
Yeah. But no, like, but it's real. It's, I think, like I said, you know, sometimes the reputation of a space can precede it in, like, both positive and negative ways, right?
Yeah. Whether it's intentional or not, too.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
that's also a big part of it.
And so I think, you know, I think that that's changing. I think that is, you know, I think it's on its way. I want to see even more, you know, and even more support for it. There's so many things also that are challenges of being a relatively small venue. But, like, yeah, I got my fingers crossed for the future.
Yeah, I mean, it's always work. I mean, that's
Yeah.
what I, you know, was thinking about too coming out here, is like, it's like it doesn't ever stop.
Yeah.
There's like you're in a for a place like this, an organization of this size, and setting out with this kind of mission, like on a certain level, it's always going to be a struggle. There's always going to be new frontiers to be pushing on. And so I guess I feel like as long as people are always engaging that and not resting on their laurels, then that bodes well.
Yeah. Was there anything that was, like, most unexpected in, like, the way that Elastic has grown until now?
I mean, I'm amazed it's still around.
So just longevity.
And I don't mean that like I didn't have any hope that it would be around. It just never really crossed my mind that would be a possibility. And maybe it's because 25 years ago, when I was in my early 20s, I just wasn't thinking that far into the future. Like 25 years, that's like forever. That's more than half of my life away, you know? Or that's like almost twice as old as I am now. So, so I think that's probably what's a little unexpected, is just the novelty of like being here 25 years later. But it's a really like pleasant unexpectedness, you know. That's the nice part about getting older, I think, is it's a really pleasant surprises.
Yeah. And if we were here doing this conversation again in 25 years, what do you hope would be your answer to that question? What has been so unexpected? So what excites you about the possibility of the future?
Well, I think all the things that you just talked about of being really walking the walk of being radically inclusive.
Yeah.
You know, because I think that has always been a part of our charter, whether it was articulated or not.
Yeah.
But I think it's just what you said about really like embodying that. And not just talking about it, and not just making it part of your mission statement, but it's like, how do you really be that?
Yeah.
So as long as as long as there's new people such as yourself getting involved to push those boundaries and to keep like being like, no, really, are you walking the walk? Like, are you actually embodying these things?
Yeah.
And asking those kinds of difficult questions. I think that's it. It's like asking these difficult questions. Then that kind of pushes the organization into pushing its own envelope.
Yeah.
So that's what I would hope, is that it would continue to do that and continue to to never rest on its laurels and just be like, well, this is it. We've achieved what we're going to achieve. We'll just keep doing this.
Yeah. Awesome.
And how about you? What about 25 years from now?
25 years from now, I want to be like, you know what I didn't expect? Elastic Arts, that's the place where you could get paid. I don't know, I'm going to be taken down now for not being anti-capitalist enough. Maybe we have to cut that part. No, but just like one of the things like so many artists are experiencing right now is, as we're entering another financial pinch, is that there's like, while there can be that like sort of emotional or creative support, there's not always like the livable support behind it. And, I would love to just see like every person who walks through these doors, who performs here, to know that they're going to be supported across the board. And that, they can come here and they can invest themselves in their art, and they can even put themselves on the line, like in a vulnerable way, in an experimental way, and they're going to be supported and they're going to be compensated. They don't have to worry about, running off to this next thing or whatever,
hustle.
And all that hustle, because, I think all that grind can really wear away at important spaces like this. So, But thank you. Thank you for this conversation.
Thank you. Totally. It's good. It's good to be here.
Yeah, welcome back.
Thank you.